People never reach this point, and it's not because they don't earn enough money. It's because nobody ever told them what actually happens when you hit it. The $20,000 rule. A simple number. But the moment you reach it, everything about your financial life shifts. Your stress drops, your momentum increases, your confidence skyrockets, and for the first time, your money finally starts working for you, not against you. This milestone separates people who stay stuck for 10, 20 years from those who start building real, unstoppable wealth. Here's the crazy part. Almost nobody understands why this happens. Most people think $20,000 is just a little savings. It's not. It's actually the tipping point where your investment returns become visible. You start to see that the money you're making isn't just from the work you do, but from the growth of your investments. Your savings start to feel real, no longer a distant dream, but something tangible in your life. Compound growth starts showing. Every month, every year, you notice a real difference in your accounts. Financial emergencies stop destroying you. You're no longer one unexpected expense away from a financial disaster. And long-term wealth becomes predictable. You know that your money is growing steadily and consistently. If you don't know how to behave at this point, you could lose everything you've just built. This is where you need to start learning how to keep your cool, stay disciplined, and stick to your plan. In this video, I'm going to break down exactly why $20,000 is the real turning point in your financial journey. What changes in your psychology when you hit it? How your money behaves differently once you reach it. The biggest mistake people make right after hitting this milestone. And the roadmap to turn $20,000, $100,000, $500,000 without losing control. Stay with me, because the part at the 10-minute mark is the most misunderstood truth in personal finance. Let's dive in. What we're going to cover in this video so you can follow the journey clearly, and more importantly, see exactly where you are on this path. First, we'll break down the emotional shift at $20,000, the invisible moment where your brain stops treating money like a constant threat and starts seeing it as a tool. You'll finally understand why this one number instantly changes how you sleep, how you spend, and how you think about the future. Then, we'll look at the financial shift, the point where your investments stop feeling tiny and start to look like a real engine. I'll show you what your money could realistically earn at $20,000, $50,000, and beyond, and why most people quit right before it gets exciting. Next, we'll talk about the safety shift, the reason financial emergencies stop destroying you after this point. This is where you break out of the cycle of one problem and I'm back to zero. We'll go into the behavior shift, how your decisions quietly change once you're no longer in survival mode. Some of these new behaviors will build wealth fast. Others will sabotage you without you even noticing. Then comes the trap, the mistake almost everyone makes right after hitting $20,000 that silently pulls them back down. If you've ever wondered why you always end up starting over, this part will hurt, but it will also free you. I'll show you a simple path to turn $20,000 into $100,000 in 2 to 4 years, even with an average income. You'll see the compound timeline. Nope. Why everything starts to accelerate after $20,000 and how to ride that wave instead of fighting it. We'll walk through a real case study of two people with the same income but totally different net worth after 10 years. And you'll probably see yourself in one of them. Then we'll upgrade your mindset from I'm just trying to survive to I'm building serious wealth. And finally, I'll give you a clear 3-step roadmap for what to do next, starting the moment you hit $20,000. By the end of this video, you won't just know what the $20,000 rule is. You'll know exactly how to use it. Something fascinating happens when you hit $20,000. Your brain stops operating in survival mode. Up until this point, every dollar feels like a battle. Every bill is a source of stress. Every unexpected expense feels like a mini crisis. Every mistake feels like it could set you back months. You're constantly living in fear and scarcity, always wondering, what if something goes wrong? But when you cross the $20,000 threshold, something incredible happens. Your brain shifts and you realize, I'm not in danger anymore. For the first time, you can take a deep breath and think long term. You're no longer constantly worried about surviving. This emotional shift is more powerful than you might realize because it lays the foundation for everything that comes next. Here's why it matters. Cortisol levels drop. That constant feeling of stress and panic starts to fade. Your decision-making improves and you start making smarter choices without that knee-jerk reaction to fear. You can think long-term. You're no longer living paycheck to paycheck. For the first time, you're planning for the future. You stop counting every dollar. You no longer feel the need to micromanage every penny. Instead, your focus shifts to bigger decisions, investments, savings, long-term goals. You stop living in fear, and for the first time in your life, you feel like you're in control of your finances, rather than your finances controlling you. This is the power of hitting $20,000. It's not just about the number, it's about what that number does to your mindset. When you can see your savings grow and feel like you're not just one mistake away from a disaster, it opens up possibilities that weren't available before. Why does this emotional shift matter so much? Because money decisions are no longer driven by fear. Instead, they're driven by confidence. At $20,000, you stop making reactive decisions. You stop worrying about what happens if something goes wrong and start thinking, what's the best move I can make to build wealth from here? This emotional shift is the foundation of everything that follows. Without this shift, most people remain stuck in a cycle of stress, panic, and short-term thinking. But once you hit $20,000, you're no longer a slave to fear. You've unlocked the first step toward building true wealth. And here's the kicker. Once you hit $20,000 and experience this shift, you won't want to go back. You won't want to return to the constant anxiety about money. From this point forward, you'll think differently about money, your future, and your ability to create wealth. The real magic happens when you realize that $20,000 is just the beginning. It's the point at which your mindset begins to change. And from here, you're no longer just trying to survive. You're building wealth. You're thinking strategically about how to use that money to create even more money. But don't make the mistake of thinking this is the end. It's just the start. And if you understand how this shift works, you'll be well on your way to turning that 20K down into something much bigger. If you hit $20,000, your relationship with money completely changes. Up until this point, your savings have felt small, your investment returns insignificant, and the idea of growing wealth seemed like a far-off dream. But something changes when you cross that threshold. For the first time, your money isn't just sitting there, it's starting to work for you. At $20,000, the financial shift happens. You start seeing the power of your money multiply through compound growth. If you have an average 7% return, that $20,000 will earn you about $1,400 a year. It doesn't sound like much at first, but let's break that down. $400 a year doesn't just stay $1,400. With compound interest, that number starts to grow on its own. $1,400 a year is like having a mini paycheck that you didn't work for, coming in passively, just for holding on to your savings and investments. And here's the kicker. When you realize that your money is earning money without you lifting a finger, everything changes. You start to think, what if I grow this to 50K? What if it reaches 100K? Wait, this could replace my job one day. That's when belief begins to form. The moment you see the first real return on your investment, something shifts inside you. No longer is investing a theoretical idea. You can see it working. That tiny return becomes a sign of what's to come, and suddenly the idea of growing wealth feels real. This is where most people stumble, though. They don't realize that this first spark of growth is just the beginning. They might feel like $20,000 is enough and become complacent, thinking they've reached the financial peak. But the reality is, hitting $20,000 is just your entry into the world of wealth building. It's the starting line, not the finish line. Once you've crossed this point, your mindset changes. It's no longer about simply saving or getting by. Now it's about growing. Your goal isn't to survive, it's to thrive. At $20,000, you start making more strategic, calculated decisions. Every investment feels like a step forward, and you're no longer gambling with your money. You're putting it to work. The problem with most people is that they never see this financial shift. They focus only on the number in their bank account and miss the fact that their money is now building momentum. If you can make the right moves from here, that momentum will snowball. Your returns will become more significant over time. And before you know it, you've gone from 20K to 100K, then to 500K. But, as always, the key here is patience. It's about understanding that the process of growth is predictable once you reach that initial tipping point. Your money will continue to grow, especially if you consistently invest and avoid the temptation to spend on short-term indulgences. This is where many people fail. They see their first returns, get excited, and then allow themselves to be distracted. They let their lifestyles creep up, and their spending increases faster than their savings. The key is to keep the discipline you had when you first hit $20,000. That's how you keep the growth curve heading upward, not sideways. Hitting $20,000 isn't a final destination. It's just the point where you can finally start building wealth in a way that's predictable and sustainable. And once you see this shift in your finances, it's much easier to stay on track and grow your wealth consistently. $20,000. Every little problem feels like a disaster. A flat tire? You borrow money? A medical bill? You go into credit card debt? A car repair? That's a setback of at least 3 months. Your financial life is fragile, constantly teetering on the edge of disaster. But once you hit $20,000, something changes. You become financially stable. This doesn't mean you're rich. It doesn't mean you've reached your financial goals or built wealth. But you've crossed an important threshold where your financial foundation is solid enough that basic emergencies no longer have the power to derail your life. Here's why it matters. Before reaching $20,000, a small emergency could throw you off course for months. When your savings are low or non-existent, even a minor setback feels catastrophic. It's hard to feel like you're making progress when you're constantly in recovery mode from the last emergency, but after you hit $20,000, the dynamic shifts. Suddenly, you're in a position where $300 for a repair or $500 for an unexpected medical bill doesn't have to ruin your entire financial trajectory. You no longer feel like one bad day could send you spiraling back into debt or force you to start over. The true power of crossing the $20,000 threshold is that it gives you a buffer. It's not about being wealthy, it's about stability. Stability is the foundation upon which all future wealth is built. Without it, the smallest disruption can derail months or even years of hard work. With $20,000 in your account, you can now withstand the bumps in the road without it feeling like the end of the world. Think about it. Once you have this cushion, your life stops being dominated by fear of financial emergencies. You can handle those curveballs with ease. This newfound stability allows you to move forward with confidence, making long-term plans without constantly worrying that a random expense will derail everything you've worked for. Here's another aspect of this stability. When emergencies stop destroying you, your ability to save and invest grows exponentially. Why? Because you're no longer spending your time and energy reacting to crises. You're no longer scrambling for cash when an emergency hits. Instead, you can focus on building your savings, building your investments, and building your future. The emotional and psychological freedom that comes from this stability is huge. You no longer need to constantly worry about money. You can start thinking about the future, planning your next moves without fear of everything falling apart if something goes wrong. Once you have $20,000, you're no longer in survival mode. You're in growth mode. And that's what's so powerful. For many people, this is the breaking point. This is the moment where they go from being stuck in a cycle of constant financial stress and fear to feeling like they've broken free. It's the moment when the path to wealth becomes predictable. Let's face it, there's nothing more mentally exhausting than feeling like you're one crisis away from disaster. And when you're constantly reacting to emergencies, it feels impossible to make progress. But with $20,000, you can finally step out of that cycle. Now you can move forward, not just survive, but thrive. This is why reaching $20,000 isn't just about having enough for emergencies. It's about breaking free from the cycle of panic and unpredictability that holds most people back. It's the point where you start to build real, lasting wealth, because you can handle life's ups and downs without losing momentum. This is just the beginning. In the next part, I'll reveal exactly why $20,000 is the real turning point in building real wealth. We'll dive into how the psychological shift happens and the next steps to turn $20,000 into $100,000. You won't want to miss this because what I share next will completely change the way you view personal finance forever.